Hello and welcome to session number 16 of my Not Your Average Bible Studies. My name is Allie with Amory Speaks, and today is March 23rd, 2025, and we're going to be starting in chapter 10 of Matthew in the New Testament. Thanks for joining. If you are returning audience member, I appreciate your energy so much. Thank you to anyone who comes to listen to these and who's making their way through them, maybe even for the first time like me, or for the first true time, Of course, I bumped into things here and there, and I've heard scriptures shared over my lifetime and stuff, but I've never actually read it. I wasn't a churchgoer family, growing up, so I wasn't really exposed to that kind of stuff, but I have had some other exposure points and read some other texts, different gospels, different histories, different maybe like theological, metaphysical kind of spiritual-based texts. And spirituality has always just been a real love of mine. So here I am on this new venture. This is sort of out of the box of my typical tool belt. So if you're into more metaphysical topics, you could check out my website, amoryspeaks.com, or look at my YouTube channel for other content where I talk about more things about consciousness, introspection, spirituality, and happiness really are kind of my common tags. So yeah, after this little bit of a shameless plug there for myself, let's get down to what we're actually here for, right? If you're new, I sort of just read through where I'm at, pick it up where I left it off, and have a couple of comments sometimes about some of the scriptures, what I personally hear and see in them. I don't come from a large knowledge base, really, so I'm not trying to be a know-it-all or a source of any sort of in a traditional sense, I'm just sharing what prompts me and my own translations, sort of. So thanks for joining, and I think I'll just get right into it without further ado. Chapter 10, starting off. And when he had called unto him his 12 disciples, he gave them power against unclean spirits to cast them out, and to heal all manner of sickness and all manner of disease. And this is so interesting to me, especially coming from the lessons and journey that I have about healing chronic illness and potential, diseases, and working to find my healthiest self, to embody. I believe we all are healers in certain aspects, and the physical body in itself, the instrument that it is, divinely created by source intelligence, infinitely and miraculously is a healing machine. And we are healers of the body, of course. We are in other ways as well, mind and spirit, different dynamics. And of course, Jesus displays a mastery of the triad, mind, body, and spirit healer. So to read these words and to see that, to know the sort of teaching of cleanliness, of hygiene on all three levels here, I really love this. And I'm going to leave it there. What I wanted to do is also, there's some phonetics here that I'm probably going to mispronounce, and that my King James Pocket Version, this Gideon's International from like the 70s, I think, I'm totally just going to read them the way that they look to me. So forgive me if you are sort of from some more traditional stance and I sound like a complete moron, here's my disclaimer. I don't mean any offense or anything by that either, just honestly reading. Now, the names of the 12 apostles are these. The first, Simon, who is called Peter, and Andrew, his brother, James, the son of Zebedee, and John, his brother. Philip and Bartholomew, Thomas and Matthew, the publican, James, the son of Alphaeus, and Lebbaeus, whose surname was Thaddeus, Simon the Canaanite, and Judas Iscariot, who also betrayed him. These 12 Jesus sent forth, and commanded them, saying, Go not into the way of the Gentiles, and into any city of the Samaritans enter ye not, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Now, when I first initially started reading this, and I've mentioned this sort of poking and prodding and scratching at questions here and there around the terminology, around cultural differences, ethnic differences, religious differences, and what exactly is being meant here. What's the boundaries, and where's the context? And then what is this exclusion and seclusion really about? And where are lines drawn? And who's applicable to the teachings and who is not, and why? I don't want to feed into a false sense of unfairness that doesn't resonate with me. And maybe some people find that, that none of these things are applicable anyways because it was so far back in time and things were so different. And if Christianity today in the world today, and if Jesus was here today, Jews and Gentiles, there isn't separate like it is, and it doesn't mean what it meant there and then. But that all depends, again, on who you choose to ask. And that's, we don't have them here to ask either. So... And another thing that I've come to sort of accept as more of a general term in a metaphysical sense to understand the great Christos, the light, the search of gnosis, and the path of the inner knowing back to source and the oneness that's open to all conscious awareness beings. And we each go through our own bestowing sort of gateways into the journey back to oneness. That there's different gradients of studentship here, even within just humanity. If we look at a quick view, a snapshot of that, there's sort of different layers and levels of conscious awareness of the journey of that, accountability that's required to activate and individuate away from the consensus of the collective, of the tribe hive mind, to move up and away and to journey out, the hero's journey, all of these things that signify what the great gnosis, is for each point when they feel called for it, is also the right to it. And it has to be the right time for the right, the disciple has to be worthy. The student must meet the master, and so back to the Gentiles and the Samaritans kind of speak in text and definitions to differentiate between the two. The Latin term to Gentile is general, right? And to see it as the general populace, the mainstream collective, and to use those terms and to set the frame to what Jesus is saying here to his disciples is to not go to those cities that are full of mainstream, that are full of the general consensus and what the populace are doing right now. And if we think about when it was perhaps of this sort of fall of Rome Empire, the great turnovers and changes, the tumultuous times that he was a part of and a part through of, a guiding light through, right? We're in those darkening phases right now, taking a similar turn in the curve, so to speak. The rhyme is occurring. in the Western world is falling again. And so to think of how we see consciousness and how we see the mainstream out there, and how a lot of us who are consciously waking up and wanting to check out and exit out of the chaos and the circus show that is what's in our cities these days, what's pumped out onto mainstream media, what we see taking place in big places like New York City or in California in general, you know, there's, you know, the mainstream lockstep, the globalist agenda, the whole Fed Rockefeller history book version that tides along. And so to think that Jesus is telling his disciples here, just as we say to ourselves nowadays and to our friends, stay out of there, don't watch the news, don't go near any of those places, go out in the woods, and whoever you find out there is meant to be out there, and you'll find what you're meant for out there, you know, because those people know the ways to truth are connected to being consciously alive in your life, each moment of each day, living your life alive, not on distractions, not in screens, not in this hive-like mind that is this, you know, cities and congestion and the rat races and the, you know, consume, obey, maintain, keep going, complain sort of cycle that's out there. And it's so monotonous, and it's actually fictional. It's not real. Such a joke when you could step outside of it and see it for what it is. You won't trap yourself. You'll step aside of the snare in the woods and say, wow, how obvious is that huge giant bear trap in the middle of the path of the woods? Like, why would is any wild animal dumb enough to even fall for that? They didn't even put covering over it. It's just the jaws of death, like sitting out in the middle of a beautiful path and like trees and flowers and some berry bushes. You're never going to want to walk over. You just walk right around it. Unless we choose to. And this is why, again, I think is sort of what he's saying here. Even though I'm sure there's great biblical context to this too. I might look into this later of deeper depictions and explanations around what Jesus is really saying here. Aaron Abke does this a little bit. I'm sure there's others. I don't watch a ton of his videos. I just here or there bump into them, but I have seen him do some translational work, tying back to the times and the day and actually what the context would mean back then, to seeing his parables being spoken in a way that is more in the times, so that we can really see it in a more novelistic sense, to get the characters. And some people have shown me that show, The Chosen, and I've watched just a couple things of it. I haven't watched many season. What do they call them? An episode? Yeah, I haven't watched many of them. The first one only, even, so I can't really point a relative base to that. But it's interesting to see those depictions. But again, it's reenactments and portrayals, in my opinion, are, you know, tightrope walk. They're very highly infringed upon, and they have a space that could be manipulated a bit too much. That I just think maybe we should be staying clear of things like that until we have a good alchemy and truth on people. Like people full of shadows, really we shouldn't be doing Hollywood acting and theatrical things. If you know, you don't have a strong sense of who you are, you get lost in telling other stories, and that's very dangerous. And I think a lot of the distractions in that is in the world we have in the mainstream. It's with TV shows and series and all of these things. Even some books, you know, a lot of series, books, novels, and this kind of thing. With fiction novels, you get caught up in the fantasy. Fantasy is very dangerous because it's almost the shadow aspect of imagination space, and it can become very diluted and delusional, and hence, you know, it is a dangerous space because we get self-centered, and it can become a place of self-harm, actually, without even really noticing. Anyways, now I've got off of my own light and shadow work, and I want to be on Sacred Sundays here, trying to hand over a bit of my own space and time, and instead of doing my own thing, you know, really give space to the scripture here and to God and source. So let's get back to it. Okay, so he says, go not into the way of the Gentiles, and into any city of the Samaritans enter ye not, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And as ye go, preach, saying, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Heal the sick, cleanse the lepers, raise the dead, cast out the devils. Freely ye have received, freely give. Now this, when I first read this, I was like, yes, that's the bow that ties the whole thing together and sets it free. I've already, this is the perfect time for me to come to these words and hear these phrases now after I've done such wonderful outlines and complete rough drafts of all of my systems work, and I'm working through the workbooks of the metaphysical mechanisms and exchanges of energetics, and to see the translation in such a different way. It's such miraculous confirmation to me. Freely ye have received, freely give. Now, for Jesus to say this to his disciples, it's so important. He teaches them in a couple of other verses I've already read, and I'm sure this is a continued repetition of gnosis and teacher's guidance, to go forth with nothing, and that you will be provided for, to go offering freely the light, the flame, the energy within you that you already have, this dire purpose within you. Each person who becomes awakened and takes on the Christ light within themselves, the Christ consciousness, the powerful system within you is going. You have a position bestowed by God, whether you see it as Jesus, a partnership within him, or a purpose for him or for God, or the great whole, call it what you will, but there's something within you, some kind of service, song, something that you can give to your community that makes you feel great while doing it, whatever it is. And that's the freely offered service. These, are healers. These are people who are called to, through truth, help correct and realign people who are sick, and fix negative systems, fix malalignments in mind, body, and spirit in the instruments. They've learned the ways from a master in this, that of course, in my opinion, and so free service, to have him underline to freely give it out, I thought is just such a wonderful important law, because you can't ask for retribution. It has to be freely offered in order for any sort of healing, especially miracles, of course, because they're sponsored by energy that's already out there. And so it can be freely used by in any dynamic. Anyone of that which is universal may accept that already out there energy bubble of whatever case they need, and apply it inside the world within themselves to do the work that needs to be done, or the healing that's being called into and forth. And furthermore, he says, provide neither gold nor silver nor brass in your purses, nor scrip for your journey. That's so important, right? Don't go out thinking and knowing. Don't have expectations and assumptions. Don't have a schedule. Divine timing and placement brings you to where you're called, and the work that needs to be done when you're on this journey and on this path. I love this. Neither two coats, neither shoes, nor yet staves, for the workman is worthy of his meat. This is such a strange translation. This is such a wonderful conundrum here. And I wonder if I have where I put my notebook, because I did right here. I think this is such an interesting phrase. A workman is worthy of his meat. And now he's saying this after having said, You don't need 2 coats, you don't need shoes, and you don't even yet need a staff. And no money, right? And nothing in your purse, right? And the other thing is, like, you should even be so energized as that you don't even need a walking stick or a staff with you. Is my take on these words so far. You know, I'm sure there's other ways and perspectives to look at interpretations and that. But I think when the workman is worthy of his meat, it calls to me to think of, you know, how good at the end of a day of doing hard labor, sitting down to actually have your meal is. And that, and I know that, you know, from a hard sense of a hard days of work, I do labor's work myself, yard work and cleaning and things where I work and live at, on a campground and motel kind of. So, it's like, you know, the healers, those who are here to bestow miracles, to set systems correct for people, to bring in alignments and corrections in this really divine way. You know, you cannot be, you know, rendering service for entanglements. It has to be offered freely, because that's the way positive service works. And that's, you know, if you have entanglements and you're asking certain retribution monies, if you're going forth with these certain intentions and with these strict parameters as to what kind of service and when you're offering it and all these things, you're infringing upon all your plans of positivity. You cannot operate positively when you have those restrictions. Don't work together. You cannot serve 2 masters. So, but when you go out with nothing, you proved that to the offering to the universe, but to God, to all that are watching and witnessing in the whole of the creative space here, the creation, that you believe fully in providership and in worth and in the surplus and abundance and your power of healing and faith, and that all is provided for, and that you do have more than enough, so much that you can pour into others and assist them, you know, and that you do see so clearly as to know that all that is needed for you will come to you at due time, and that you accept and allow and move through and release and let go of that which is no longer serving as well. That's the huge other part of it, right? How do you have an accumulation with you, a giant backpack weighing you down of things to what? Prove your worth, just in case you don't make it? That is exactly the opposite of what you're trying to say and do and offer, and what your proof and your faith says. You know, you're contradicting yourself like a hypocrite, bringing a bar of gold with yourself and then saying, God provides for me every day. I have no worries or cares in that manner. But it's only because just in case I have this bar here that I could easily render for a place to sleep if no one wants my service today. You know, that's not, that's so base, leveled contradictions to faith, you know? So I really love how he points this out and speaks on it, and also to say that whatever you get at the end of the day is what you deserve. This is the other thing about a workman is worthy of his meat. Not just a hard laborious man needs something good to eat, and that's really 3D sort of metaphor of it, but that the work you do all day spiritually, out, you know, the faith that you put in, the real intentions and truths you tell yourself all day are the meal at the end of the day, and you deserve that. And if you've done good work, you will find a good place to sleep at night. You will be taken care of, and nothing bad will befall you, you know? And if something bad befalls, and when it does, it's your time to look, stop, find the keys to see what is the lessons in it, because it's clear that you've missed something or you're tripping over something. You deserve what you get. And you can't preach that all the time when you're only getting good things, you know, and tell yourself it's that reason. And then when you get bad things, you tell yourself it's another reason. You know, it doesn't work like that. Anyways, I'm going to go on just a little bit further, but I am almost pushing 30 minutes or so. So I think I'm going to get ready to find a good stopping point for today. And into whatsoever city or town ye shall enter, inquire who in it is worthy, and there abide till ye go thence. And when ye come into a house, salute it. And if the house be worthy, let your peace come upon it. But if it not be worthy, let your peace return to you. And whosoever shall not receive you, nor hear your words, when ye depart from that house or city, shake off the dust of your feet. Now, this is what I was just talking about moving through things, letting go of all things, right? This is so important that we recognize who has ears to hear and who doesn't, and not to hold ourselves accountable for those who aren't ready to hear us. They're part of a different role and a different setting of the great drama happening. We can't be pulling people out of their scenes and out of their timelines and try to force them into things that they're not quite ready for, that aren't ready to happen for them yet. It's very unfair. You know, I say this in a lot of my sort of metaphysical teachings about numbers and math and systems. You know, you cannot go into kindergarten and start teaching calculus, even to the brightest kindergarten. I mean, 1 in 100 might be a genius level child of intellect who is ready to learn that type of capability. They might be teaching you something new. We should really be learning from that, that miracle gift. But for the most part, when we talk about an average, you know, even the brightest kindergarten are not ready for calculus, even though their capacity at once they meet the sequential growth point, they can get there to learn it. But you can't just jump right into it with them. I think that we're much like that in many different ways. So yeah, I really appreciate again how he sort of acknowledges that we have to realize when we enter a place who is at a capacity and standing, who's at our grade level, so to speak, our peers. Conscious awareness and openness of heart, activated Christ consciousness, you know, or seeking truth, basically. Because we can call it at the day any word or verbs or any language, but it's the seeking of honest truth and goodness. It's to care for the self as you would care for another, and to care for others as you would care for yourself, to see the reflection of Source and God and the wholeness in all of us, and to know that we're all worthy of that in our own unique place and setting and role. And that if we allowed that and could care for that and tend to that for each of us and hold ourselves accountable to that, greater things would happen. We'd become so much closer to the whole, to where many of these things would be solved, in my opinion. And like Jesus mentions in the beginning, the unclean spirits and the devils and Satan and these things and worms and all the darkness and excreting all these things out of us. He talks a lot about these kind of phrases and yes, they're real, but they're also metaphors, and it's such great, you know, examples of the work that needs to be done in order for us to operate smoothly and cleanly and to do what's best, to seek the goodness. We really do have to acknowledge and work through hard things. We do come upon unagreeable things. We have unhappy emotions. There, you know, there's catalysts and disturbances. But if we could better assess them and approach them, you know, like Jesus teaches, in a more Christ-like manner, imagine that. Imagine each one of us in our Christ-like manner, operating even 50% of the day, if we could do this all the time. You know, I'm not even trying to say I operate in my highest Christ-like manner at 100% every day. I'm 100% seeking that for myself all day, but I fall. I find myself on autopilot. I trip up. You know, I cannot serve two masters at once, and I acknowledge that both have a pull, but I am overall seeking consistently that higher light to go towards my highest self. That's what's best for me, the Christ, the light, truth, you know. And I want all to be on that same journey. I want all to do the good seeking for themselves, because it does feel great and it brings greatness to our lives. It calls forth that, you know, and encourages others too. So But again, not all, and not all are ready for it, and some almost pin themselves against it. And so I can totally also get from a great master sense why Jesus is sort of like, don't even bother going to those places and spaces, because, you know, much like some of us are learning in the political realms, or in these, you know, social places like schools and town committees and stuff, where they're sort of pushing these agendas, you know, it's really violent and chaotic to go against those extremes right now. I think I'll leave it there. Jesus goes into, you know, the next verses. He goes into a little bit about the day and time in comparison on his timeline as to those who are living, much like, you know, Sodom and Gomorrah is much like, I don't know, DC, LA, Hollywood, New York City, all of these sort of really fanatical, hyper-polarized places that we see right now. And I'm going to probably, you know, could talk for quite a while on that, and it's already here almost passing a half an hour. So I think I'll leave it there for today. Thank you for joining me here on our wonderful Sacred Sunday. I hope you find some free time, some peaceful time to yourself, and to your own connectivity to God, to Source, whether that be through prayer, meditation, or just quiet sitting, relaxation, or through a habit or hobby that's a Zen-like connectivity to your inner enjoyments. All of these ways are such great services and honorings, really, to God and to the promise of a Sacred Sunday practices. So I'm going to be enlivening my day with those. I hope to empower others to do that as well. Thanks for listening here today. I hope I'll see you next Sunday, and have a wonderful week. If in the meantime you are interested in hearing different things that I have to offer, you could check out my YouTube or BitChute channels. I'll have links in the description usually about some different running topics that I'm doing, or you can always find amariespeaks.com, which holds all my content. Thanks for joining me as always. Thank you for your individual contribution to our collective. Thank you for witnessing mine. Wouldn't be the same without us, right? And yeah, I'll catch you next time.